you have to actually perform the par. Okay, take a few minutes, make sure that everybody is accounted for. Okay? And it could also be initiated by a member who witnesses or has confirmed that a firefighter is lost or in trouble. So, if you see somebody go down, then clearly you can relay that mayday for them. Procedure order. When calling the mayday, the fire personnel will use the following format in their message. At the beginning of the transmission, the term mayday will be said 3 times. So mayday, 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 and push the emergency button if equipped. How many people have emergency buttons on their radios? All right. So I have mixed feelings about our emergency buttons. Here in Farmington, we don't have them programmed because they get pushed nonchalantly, and if you don't know, when an emergency button is pushed, most of them are programmed on the radio that the microphone will actually open, and you're able just to free talk. So, food for thought on that. If you've got them, however, and they're used correctly, they can be a great resource. So if you've got that, you can push the emergency button. They're usually orange. I think that's a universal standard with radios. So then the firefighter's going to await acknowledgement. So you're going to give your mayday, 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 and then you need to wait for whoever you're communicating with. It may be the IC, it may be an ops person, an ops sector chief, whoever's running the operation portion of your incident. So we're going to wait for them to acknowledge, say, go ahead with your mayday, or you're calling whatever it is. But we need that acknowledgement before we start rambling our message, because if we just kick it out on the radio, hey, I'm in trouble, I'm here, I'm there, I've got so-and-so with me, this is what happened, they may or may not hear that. There's so much going on the fire ground that they may or may not hear your traffic. So you don't want to waste any breath or energy calling the mayday until you actually have that acknowledgement. So your next transmission will utilize the analogy lunar. Okay, we're going to talk about lunar in depth. Some people have probably heard lunar, some people may not. So we're going to cover that. It's a tool. Just remember it's a tool as we go through this. Okay, so the L, U, N, A, and R all have a definition to them, if you will. So you've got L is for the location, so that's where the mayday is happening. You've got U for unit number, that's your unit number. Name, obviously that's going to be your name, or the name of the person that you're calling mayday for. A is for assignment and air report. And R is for resources. What kind of resources do you need to get out of this particular situation? So let's break it down a little bit further. Okay, so location, L, he says location, defines being the location that you are within the fire building or fire ground. So if you were assigned to the roof, and the roof collapsed and you fell to the first floor, what is your location?
First floor.
First floor, right? You're not telling them the location that you were. We need to know where to find you. Okay? So first floor. U is defined as being a unit number, fire personnel that's calling mayday. First floor is 3616, or whatever your number might be. Name, defined as being the name of the person calling the mayday. 3616 is Adam, or Shenovar, whatever you want to say, Joe Blow, whatever your name is. A, assignment and air report, defined as being the assignment that you were assigned to, and how much air you have in your SCBA. So assignment could have been, I was assigned to the roof operation or ventilation. I was assigned to search, fire attack, whatever it is that you were doing when this mayday event happened. And then the remaining air that you have. And we're going to think in just a little bit later here, we're going to break down, we're going to talk about the air a little bit further and how we're going to report that. And R is the resources. That's the resources that personnel may have or is in immediate need of. So if you have a crew of 4 firefighters and one fell through a hole, he calls mayday and says, I fell through the hole of the basement, my crew is working to get me out. That's what the resources are that he has working for him. But if he didn't have those resources, he might call and request I need additional personnel to get me out of this hole. That makes sense? All right, so let's take a little bit, I think a little bit further here, even so. So here's an example of the Mayday message. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. I'm trapped in the bedroom on the A side of the building. This is 4252 John Smith. My assignment was primary search, and my air level is at 1/4 remaining. The partner is unconscious and has no remaining air. I'm deploying buddy reading, requesting rig crew with air immediately. That's a whole lot of information, right? So that is Lunar in depth. That's a whole Lunar message, and from personal experience, I can tell you, you can train on this. I can tell you, till you're blue in the face time, do this, do that, speak Lunar, use all these definitions and acronyms, and when it actually happens, you're probably going to get about half of that out. It's just a lot to remember, and especially in a situation where you're going to be freaked out, it's going to be chaotic. So we have some options, and we'll talk about another option for calling a Mayday opposed to Lunar. So what we said about the air, due to variances in SCBA pressures, air report should be given in fractional levels, so full, 3/4, half, quarter, near empty, whatever you got going on. So the reason we're giving these in quarter increments is because we respond with mutual aid departments sometimes that don't have the same bottle size as we do. So what's a half to one person maybe more than half on another. So just a comparison, so 2216 PSI versus 4500 PSI. So yes, it's the same pressure in number, but half on a 45 is actually full on a 2216. So it can get confusing if we use the number. Does that make sense? So we're going to give you quarters. More on the procedure. So we've got the message out. We've been answered. We've given our Lunar report. Now the firefighter calling the Mayday immediately turns on flashlight and activates pass device. So kind of going back on the little bit of the Mayday event that I told you about earlier, that was one thing that I didn't have. One, I didn't have a flashlight. For the longest time, I've been guilty of not wearing one. I try to now, but I didn't activate my pass device. It was one of the last things on my mind. And oddly enough, I had just taught that class a couple days prior, and it should have been fresh in my mind, but it didn't happen. So, that's one thing. If you can remember, activate that pass. You understand why we're activating the pass? So we can find you, right? So whoever's coming to get you will find you. Because obviously the pass device is going to be really loud. Firefighters are probably going to be disoriented, so that's going to only help.